G'day guys and welcome to ReDriven. Now, the Mitsubishi ASX, or depending on where you're watching this might be an RVR or an Outlander Sport. Whatever the case, here in Australia, these things when new sold like crazy, so there's heaps of them on the used car market. But just because these were hugely popular as a new car, that doesn't necessarily mean they're actually any good as a used car. Now that many of these are quite a few years old and have many thousands of kilometres on them, are they any good? What goes wrong with them? Are they reliable? What do they cost to own and operate? What do they like to live with every day? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into the ASX/RVR/Outlander Sport, I should mention that in this video, we're going to be focusing on the Australian variants of the ASX. But if you're not watching this from Australia, don't freak out or panic, because everything we're going to be going over, it should relate to ASXs, RVRs and Outlander Sports in your local market. Also, to make this video as objective as we possibly could, we've reached out to multiple ASX owners and owners groups, various Mitsubishi technicians and specialist mechanics. We've even trawled through owner satisfaction reports and reliability surveys. So this video is basically the culmination of all of their and that information. Now, thanks to the ASX being with us since way back in 2010, these things are available in a plethora of different generations, different trim levels, engines, transmissions, a whole bunch of stuff. To try and explain all of that, here's me doing a voiceover over some B-roll. Based on the same platform as the Mitsubishi Lancer and Outlander, the ASX fills the size gap between the two with shorter overhangs than the Outlander, but a raised ride height when compared to the Lancer. Over the last 11 years, the ASX has been available across 4 main generations, but it has seen multiple updates, most notably in 2012 when it received a facelift, in 2014 receiving some mechanical tweaks and extra features, again in 2015 with revised styling and some new technology, 2017 saw a substantial facelift and yet another update to the equipment offered, and finally in 2020 featuring arguably the biggest visual and styling update, as well as the addition of more tech and features. Then there's the choice of 2 different petrol engines, 2 different diesel engines, front-wheel or four-wheel drive, manual, auto or CVT transmissions, with all configurations of these varying depending on year and trim spec. And speaking of trim spec, Mitsubishi seems determined to confuse potential ASX customers in terms of trim levels, as the ASX has been available across no less than 18 different trim levels and special editions. And guys, look, we'd love nothing more than to go over every graphic detail of every specification and upgrade possible, but that would just take hours and hours. But instead of doing that, we've gone and gathered all of that information. We've put it in our very handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now guys, if you already own an ASX or you're like an ASX expert and you've noticed that we've missed something major in this video, please let us know in the comments. Look, obviously we're going to do everything we can to cover the vast majority of things on this car, but we generally find it's those that own these cars that are the true experts. So again, if we've missed something, let us know in the comments. Okay, so does it look good? Well, I suppose it depends on which generation and trim level of ASX you're looking at. But the thing is, all of this genre of car, they're all a bit boring. It's almost like comparing which fridge or washing machine looks best. Look, I do get that these things have to appeal to an enormous range of different humans, but I just wish they'd take a few design risks, because they all look a bit bland. Now guys, if you are in the market for one of these, it's important to know that the vast majority spend most of their time in built up metropolitan areas, so it's pretty safe to assume there's going to be a few little scratches and dings and dents from trolleys and life. But the big problem is, because some people are just idiots and they text and drive, a lot of these also have some potential accident damage in the front and the rear from people texting and driving and then running into things. That's no good. So if you're in the market, make sure you check over the entire exterior for any signs of accident damage or dodgy repair work. A telltale sign of dodgy repair work are any signs of overspray, so pop the bonnet, look for overspray in the engine bay. Also look for any black plastics that don't match in age and colour. If you see one bit of black plastic that's super black and the other one's been clearly aged by UV light, that's not a good sign. Also, make sure that the paint matches between panels, both in colour and texture, and check all the panel gaps. They should all be the same gap around the whole car. Now, even though these are available in four-wheel drive, they're not designed to go off-road as such, but the thing is, some people do like to attempt to explore the wilderness in them, so make sure you get underneath and look for any major scratches or signs of abuse. Make sure you check all the wheels for any signs of gutter rash, like gutter rash here, like, you know, a little scrape there, that's fine. But if there's any big chunks or dents out of the wheels or tyres, it can potentially lead to some suspension damage. Now, there are a few common faults and issues with the exterior of these cars, but we're going to get to those in a little bit. Okay, so how's the interior? Well, look, from a design aspect, it is going to vary depending on year and trim level, but in this one, it's fine. Again, I feel like this category of car is a bit like looking at white goods, like it's like comparing which microwave versus dishwasher looks best. Now, as far as ergonomics go, I'll be honest, I've had this car for a few days and I just can't find like my ultimate driving position. No matter what I've tried, I'm just never quite there. Obviously that's subjective to me, but yeah, I don't know, it's kind of annoying. The quality of materials used, again, is going to vary on the year and trim spec. In this car, it does feel a bit cheap, like some of the plastics are a little bit crappy. There's not a lot of squidge going on. The steering wheel, I don't know, the buttons are, like, everything's okay. Even with the door handle, like when you open and close the door, the actual whole handle moves in your hand. Not ideal. Okay, as far as wear and tear goes, first of all, with these manufacturers with piano black plastic, like it looks okay when new, but it does scratch up really easily. There have been a couple of cars that haven't scratched up, but that's super rare. Even down here, like, yeah, this isn't wearing real nicely around here. One big thing, this is a leather interior, but I feel like they've used the leather off like an aging elephant. This is the hardest, Mum, don't call me now, I love you, but not right now. Sorry, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the leather, okay, yeah. It feels like the leather is off like an aging elephant. It is the hardest leather I've ever come across. It almost feels like hard plastic. I'm sure you could bring it back from the dead with some conditioning, but like, that's insane. Also, look, I don't know if it's this particular car, but this thing heats up, again, we're talking white goods here, it heats up like an oven. Like it's not that hot of a day, but my God, it's roasting in here. Wear and tear elsewhere isn't too bad. Like the steering wheel is getting a little bit used, but like it's nothing too bad. The hard plastics being hard plastics aren't wearing too badly either. It's okay. It just, I don't know, it just feels a bit cheap. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly twice the height of the high tide that hit Guaymas Beach in Mexico on the 15th of April 2010. This is in my driving position, and it's interesting. Like I've got heaps of knee room, heaps of foot room, but I feel like I'm sitting up like I'm, you know, like a crash test dummy, or like I'm trying to be good in school. It just, this is reclined back as far as it can go, but it just feels a bit too upright. But overall, spaciousness-wise, palatial. Now, as far as wear and tear goes, the leather back here feels like actual leather, not like it's some prehistoric form of leather. This is actually quite soft. And there's really no signs of wear and tear back here. Again, this has been this owner's daily driver, but you can never tell. It's great. I should mention that Mitsubishi have been generous enough to fit the back of the ASX with some abstract artwork, which is quite beautiful. Adds a, you know, bit of sophistication back here. So how's the tech? Well, the tech is going to vary dramatically depending on year and trim spec, but for an overview of what to expect, here's me doing a voiceover. Early base model ASXs come with a 4-speaker stereo with a CD player, cruise control, trip computer, steering wheel controls and air conditioning, with some models receiving climate control, while equipment like daytime running lights, Bluetooth connectivity, USB ports and 12-volt power outlets are available on higher spec or more recent models. Also, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto have been available on later models, but for the graphic details of which ASX gets what tech, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. So is it practical? Well, room in das Boot is not too bad. Like, it is a smaller SUV, so it's not exactly huge back here, but not too bad. Also, these seats, they do fold flat, so that improves things. As far as practicality in the back seat goes, you have Uno pouch just here and a couple of cup holders in the armrest, and that's about it. There's a little storage here, but I wouldn't count that as storage. That's about it for practicality. And practicality up front, you've got some pretty decent sized door bins. You've got a little spot up here for all your deep dark secrets. There's a good spot down here for your mobile phone. That is perfect for a smartphone. Now, I thought this was a keep cup and hence this was a cup holder, but it turns out this is actually an ashtray for those that smoke. Gross, disgusting. Also, I thought this would therefore also become a cup holder, but Mitsubishi are extremely strict on that. If there's a drink going in here, it cannot have a straw. No straws in here. Normal cup, completely fine. There are another 2 cup holders back here. There's a storage bin here, which also has a little bit of a secret drop-down shelf, which is nice. And there's a really good sized glove box. And I think that's it for storage. Nothing under the seats, no sunglasses holder up there. That's it for storage. Okay, so what goes wrong with these things? Well, we'll get to the mechanical stuff in a little bit, but let's start with the exterior. Now, ASX is fitted with this panoramic roof, can have a few problems. The roof can actually come adrift in the right or wrong conditions, effectively turning the car into a convertible. There are a few reports that water can enter the windscreen wiper motor, basically corroding it and effectively killing it. Worryingly, there are a few reports that the doors can just sporadically open of their own accord, basically due to some faulty latches. There are a few reports that the key remote just stops working, so you can't unlock or lock the car with the remote. You've actually got to use an actual key, like some sort of loser. Now inside, there are quite a few reports that the infotainment systems don't play nicely with Android devices, either via Bluetooth or via any of the connections. They won't control volume, won't skip songs, and can just freak out in general. Also on a few models, there have been some problems with the forward mitigation warnings, just going off like crazy and being completely incorrect. Now, before we get into mechanically what goes wrong with these things, can I ask a favor? Can you hit those like, subscribe, and bell buttons? And also, can you share this video as much as you can? Because the more you share this and the more you hit those buttons, the more of these videos we can make, and that'd be lovely. Now, mechanically, what goes wrong with these? Well, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not qualified to tell you, but Jim is.
Overall, fairly reliable. The petrol engine, if it's been well serviced, doesn't really have any major faults. It is a timing chain, not a timing belt, so it is actually fairly low maintenance. The diesel variants aren't known for being unreliable, but they do suffer from the same DPF and EGR problems as nearly all other modern turbo diesels. The big brother versions of these diesel engines do have a few problems though. In other Mitsubishis, they have problems with their timing chains, there's some balance shaft issues and some cracked cylinder heads. So time will tell if the ASX has the same problems. The Jatco CVT transmission does cop a bit of flack for being unreliable, but documented reports of these things failing compared to the number of them out there, it actually suggests otherwise. However, just keep in mind that when they do fail, it's eye-wateringly expensive to fix. Besides that, mechanically, they're pretty good. I mean, they're boring, but they're pretty good.
Now, we should mention, loads of these problems resulted in factory recalls to resolve them, but if you are in the market for an ASX, just make sure any factory recalls have been carried out. Is it safe? Well, from when the ASX first came out, the safety has been quite good, and the safety has increased with, every update along the way. But for a quick overview of what these have in safety, here's me doing a voiceover as fast as I possibly can. The ASX comes fitted with 7 airbags, anti-lock brakes, brake assist, traction control, electronic stability control, electronic brake force distribution, and a hill holder. Plus, other standard safety features on certain variants of the ASX include autonomous emergency braking, a rear vision camera, front collision warning, and mitigation. And the ASX has scored a 5-star ANCAP safety rating from its inception and has retained that rating throughout its various updates. Again, for all the graphic details of what ASX has which safety technology, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out the cheat sheet. So, what's it like to drive? Well, it's utterly uneventful. Now look, I could get all motoring journalist wanker and talk about, the steering nuance and the mid-corner chassis balance and all that sort of stuff, but talking about the driving dynamics of an ASX is a bit like talking about the cooling dynamics of your fridge. It's completely boring and utterly useless. But look, it goes fine. It's not fast, but it's not embarrassingly slow. This particular car is fitted with the CVT transmission, so it has that constant kind of minor chord, like kind of sounds sad all the time. It's a bit frustrating, but you get used to it. It's fine. However, some owners have complained that with the CVT transmission, there's a bit of lag between when you put your foot down and when the car actually accelerates forward. It affected a batch of cars from 2015, but again, there was a recall to fix all that. That said, that is a bit of a CVT characteristic in general anyway. It does have paddle shifters, so you can pretend to be Daniel Ricciardo, but having paddle shifters in something like this is basically the ASX pretending to be exciting, which it isn't. As far as the steering goes, I found that if you turn this thing, the car changes direction. It's genius. The suspension isn't too hard, but it's not too soft. If you rev it out, it sounds a bit shit. But as far as rattles and squeaks go, in this particular car, there's none. It actually sounds pretty tight. Although, there is the feeling that it's a cheap car, it's been built on a budget. Like it just doesn't feel premium at all. Look, overall, no matter where you're driving it, it's fine. It just gets the job done. It's fine. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from around about $9,000 for older, high kilometre kind of dodgy examples, and then tops out at around about $35,000 for really recent, low kilometre, mint condition examples. Something like this, a 2015 top spec with a reasonable amount of kilometres on it in pretty good condition, anywhere between 19 to about 25 grand. And for pricing elsewhere on this fabulous planet of ours, here's a graphic. Mitsubishi claim a fuel consumption figure of anywhere between 5.8 to 8.1 litres per 100 kilometres, and that will depend on, fuel type, engine size, gearbox, front wheel drive, all-wheel drive, all that sort of stuff. This particular ASX is claimed at having a fuel consumption figure of 7.4 litres per 100 k's, which is hilarious because on this test, we're seeing a figure of 12.5. Mitsubishi initially offered a really good 5-year, 130,000 kilometre warranty on all ASXs. However, that was wound back to 100,000 kilometres as of the 2015 year model. However, as of October 2020, Mitsubishi are offering a 10-year, 200,000 kilometre warranty, although there are a whole bunch of terms and conditions attached to that. But regardless, well done, Mitsubishi. Servicing is recommended at every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, but if you're looking at like older, higher kilometre versions of these, we'd wind that back to probably every 10,000 k's. Okay, so should you buy one? Well, look, if you're okay with owning a pretty boring and uninspiring car, then yeah, suppose. However, look, we would recommend against the diesel variants, as the maintenance costs may be more expensive than their petrol counterparts, and repairs and upkeep will possibly eat into any savings that you've made in terms of fuel consumption. Plus, we think the petrol-engined ASXs are just more enjoyable to drive, but hey, AK, which petrol variant should you buy? Well, that comes down to you and your budget. As there are so many different ASXs available, we'd go with the newest, lowest kilometre example that your budget allows. But it is absolutely critical that the ASX you're looking at has a full and thorough service history and has had any factory recalls sorted out. So look, okay, they are a bit boring, but they do offer great value for money, and there are some absolute gems out there. And with so many of these on the used car market, there's no need to rush into buying one. Just take your time and find the perfect ASX for you. And you're going to end up with a really good car. Like a boring, but a really good car. So guys, what did you think of the ASX/RVR/Outlander Sport? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, can you please hit those like, subscribe and bell buttons? It really does help us out. Also share the video. The more you share this, the more of these we can make. And go and check us out on the socials. See you next time. Now ASX is fitted with this panoramic roof. Now, ASX is fitted with this panoramic roof. Now, ASX is fitted with this panoramic roof. It can have a few issues, basically effectively opening or not. I need to look at it. Hang on. I can't remember all of the lines. Where is it? Where are we up to? Become adrift in the right or wrong conditions. I like the word adrift. Missed something major in this video? Please comment in the comments. There we go. They're all pretty boring. It's almost like looking at comparing okay, let's go from the top of that. Okay. Kilometre warranty on all so close. Mitsubishi. I should mention that Mitsubishi have been generous enough to. Come on.